the Macintosh has pictures, that makes it a toy. So all the engineers at Hewlett Packard kind of snivelled at the Texas Instruments calculator, and we brought out the card with the big huge equation. Everyone laughed because you could never solve such a big equation with a simple little parentheses calculator. Well, I decided to be the guinea pig. I said, okay, I'll try. And I took the card with the big equation, and I'm working my way over, hitting parentheses, 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 thinking how many terms am I going in to do the first thing first. And I realized I'm never going to be able to keep it all in my memory. I'm never going to do the right number of parentheses coming out. I'm going to get it wrong. So what I did was I cleared my head out. And I cleared it out real thoroughly. I said, is there a different way? And I thought, maybe I just type the characters in the way they're written, from left to right. And I started typing parentheses 5 plus, I typed it as quick as I could, and I guessed whether you had to get square root before or after the number, and I got the right answer the first time. And I handed it to the other engineers, and I said, just go left to right. And about 5 engineers tried it, and not one of them could figure out how to go left to right. They had to use a skill. If you've taught yourself a skill over time of organizing what gets done first, what gets done second to solve an equation, you don't want to give up the skill you have just because somebody else has done it easier. And the truth of the matter is, Texas Instruments had a language that matched our written. The written language and the calculating language were now the same. And you didn't have to really think. It did the work for your head. You didn't have to remember how many things you had saved on a stack where. So it's very difficult sometimes to see something in technology when it's clearly better or more human. It's hard to see it once you have established your own ways and your own skills. While I worked at Hewlett Packard, I still loved electronics at night. I went home and I wanted to build other projects out of electronics. And one of my side projects, I started the very first dial-a-joke in the San Francisco area. Now, back in these days, nobody started a dial-a-joke anywhere. Nobody. You'll never run into anybody else. It's a little machine that if you dial a number, you could hear a joke. Now, sure, I'm sure they had them here in Switzerland, and they had them in some other countries, and I was familiar with them from my blue boxing experience, but nowhere in the United States because it was illegal back then to own or purchase or use a telephone. It was illegal in the United States to own or purchase or use an answering machine. You had to lease the one machine that was offered from the local phone company, AT&T. So I leased the machine, and it cost as much as my apartment rental. That's why nobody did it. And I put a short joke on every day, and I told Polish jokes. And then the Polish organization was going to threaten me with a lawsuit, so I said, what if I changed them to Italian jokes? And they said, fine. And that was back before you had to be politically correct. So I ran dial-a-joke, and I walked into a bowling alley, and I saw a Pong game, and I was mesmerized. To think that a television set, a little tiny television, could play a game with sounds and actually get money just like these pinball games. To think that somebody figured out how to make a television play a game. Incredible. And as I looked at it, I said, I can build one of those. I knew I was really skilled at designing logic circuits, and I knew how television signals worked from high school electronics. If you put pulses out on a wire at the right time, they show up as white dots on your TV. So I sat down, I designed a very small Pong with very few chips, doing it Woz style. And around this time, Steve Jobs went to college. He went up to Reed College in Portland, Oregon, because he heard that they had a physics professor who won a Nobel Prize. And Steve admired all these people that had won great prizes in life. He thought that there were very few Einsteins and Isaac Newtons that really transformed the world, and he always wanted to be one of those people, and he wanted to be around them. So I drove him up to Reed College, and he got his list of classes like you get when you enter college. And it was the standard courses in reading and literature and history and math and all this, and he held the list out in front of me, and he said, look at this list of what they tell me I have to take. He thought when you went to college, you could take all the exotic courses in quantum physics, and you would sign up for Shakespeare courses and things. So he didn't attend one of his classes they gave him. He just sat that first week of school, in a tent in his dorm room with his girlfriend, and didn't go to any classes. And I thought, you're going to get in trouble. I would never do that. But Steve's a very persuasive guy. He's very likable, and he's got such a mind that he can convince people into things. And he convinced that school to let him stay in the dorm for a year or two and take classes, attend any classes he wanted without paying tuition, without paying dorm fees, just for free. And he wound up getting some kind of education out of it. Well, he came back and he got a job at the company that was going to change the world. Atari was building these games, video games like Pong, that were going to fill up the bowling alleys and the movie theaters, and someday video arcades would be a part of life. And it all started with Atari in Los Gatos, California, city I'm proud to live in. Anyway, Steve would invite me in sometimes. He had a job there fixing up games, and I got to see the new stuff. And then he came to me and he said, they want to hire you because you designed a Pong. Very few chips. They even wanted to put my Pong out as a home Pong game. And I said, no way, I'll never leave Hewlett-Packard. Hewlett-Packard is a company for engineers. They respect engineers. You don't have to feel pressure to go up into management. I'll be happy at Hewlett-Packard, being an engineer for life, so I'll never leave Hewlett-Packard. It's fine. Then Steve came to me and he said, well, okay, Nolan Bushnell, the owner of Atari, the founder of Atari, wants a one-player Pong. It's called Breakout now. And Steve kind of described it to me and said, would you design it? Would I design it? It would be the greatest thing in my life, the greatest honor in my life, to design a video game that people will actually play. My God, of course I'll design it. Steve said there's one little hitch. You have to design it in 4 days. 4 days. Now, games were not software back then. They were hardware. You had to solder wires to pins on chips to get the right pulses at the right time on some wire into a TV set to show up as balls and paddles. It was a very complicated project that should take half a year at least, maybe even longer. Well, anyway, Nolan Bushnell wanted me to design it because I designed things with so few chips, and he was getting exasperated that the designers he had were getting games with 120 chips, 150 chips, 190 chips, way too many chips. He just didn't like the expansion. He wanted to go the other way. Well, I said, I don't think I can do it in 4 days, design this game Breakout, but I'll give it a try. I sat down and didn't sleep for 4 days straight. Steve Jobs and I both got the sleeping disease, mononucleosis, from this. We stayed up and I would design in the days, and at night we'd go into Atari and Steve would wire wrap my design, and I'd go out on the factory floor and play the first driving game ever, Grand Track Tim. I got so good at it, eventually in my city they had a pizza parlor, and you could win a free pizza if you got 36 or more points on that game, and I could get 40. So after I got my second free pizza, they took it out. But I was in a state of not sleeping for 4 days and nights. And when you're in that state, your mind gets into its most creative state. Sometimes when you're falling asleep, when you're waking up, especially when you're young. I mean, I used to go to sleep with problems on my head in high school. I would go, and after, even up to this point in time, I would go to sleep with an engineering problem, a programming problem, or a math problem on my head, thinking about it, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night and write down a solution. And it was very reliable, actually. Well, going without sleep, I saw this new game on the factory floor at Atari. And this game, all the games back then were built with black and white televisions because color televisions were too expensive. But this one game had taped over it mylar layers of red, green, blue, yellow. And as the ball went back and forth, it was changing colors like a rainbow. And I said, is that a color TV? And no, it wasn't a color TV. It was a clever trick. But it made me think how wonderfully beautiful this color is. We really need these games in color. And then that got me thinking. I remember right where I was standing in the Atari lab, and my head floated up, and I just sort of envisioned one little chip, a chip that cost $1, spinning around some ones and zeros, and what came out of it was a signal that went up and down and up and down and up and down. Just like color on a color TV, if you spin the ones and zeros at the right rate. Just like color. I wonder if that cute little idea would ever produce color that you would really see on a TV set. Normally, television color generators were huge boards full of all sorts of electronics, mixing phases and all this analog circuitry, and this one little idea, I wondered if it would work. I also heard talk that there was going to be, these games were going to go to microprocessors someday. I said, oh my gosh, what's a microprocessor? I don't even know what it is. But if it's like a computer, I guess you can program a game, yeah. That was a great project. We delivered a working Breakout to Atari, and although we got paid, Steve Jobs told me we got paid one amount, but he actually got paid more. So, and I don't care. I would have done it for free. It was so well worth it. And I